So welcome to part 2 of where should you spend your marketing budgets. In the first part I gave some examples of clients who've approached Adido in the last 12 months and some of the briefs we've received, and I talked about whether they are good or bad or doing the right things. In the second part we're going to be looking at the two different areas which you can spend your budget. Firstly, driving people through to your website through marketing channels, and in the third part we'll be looking at how to improve your website and things like that. Before we go into the detail of either of those, we have a template, a formula that we use at Adido to try and illustrate the problems that a client might have in hitting their objectives and our solutions to those problems. The example here is a client that can spend money on 4 different channels, and these are fairly standard ones. Paid advertising through Google or Bing, remarketing through both of those channels, sometimes some display advertising on top, and additionally Facebook ads. Here we've got an example where we're spending around £28,000 on our media each month, and a prediction based on some various formulas and experience that we have in the team about the sort of revenue and return you may get from each of those different channels. But here we can see the spend you may have and the conversion rates. So in this part we're going to be looking at how do I spend my marketing budget more effectively, and giving you some tips and insight into how you may do that. Firstly, if you're spending money on Google and Bing, anyone who's doing so needs to make sure they're spending their money on the right keywords. This is the most crucial part of any Google search campaign. And quite often we see that this may be overlooked by people that have done it themselves internally, or sometimes they work with agencies and those keyword lists haven't been looked at for a while. So the first thing we always do when we take a campaign on is look at the Google keyword tool, use some of the other keyword tools available, and try and build up a good keyword list, which gives us an insight into how much we may pay for those phrases and what sort of positions we may be getting. If we don't do this activity, then we won't really know if we're bidding on the right things, and certainly we won't know if we're getting the right sort of traffic through. So it's the most important phase of any search campaign, and this is a tool that really does drive everything that we do. Now, you're probably already spending money on Google Ads, maybe you're spending money on Bing as well, but one of the things we see when we take over accounts from other agencies is that often they've not trialed and used some of the tools within the Google Ads set. So in this example here, we highlighted a client's campaign where they were really spending most of their budget on 2 to 5 different phrases. The agency had been running the campaign for several months, or actually the last 12 months in this instance, but hadn't really done much to try and optimize that campaign down. The objective was to try and grow the amount of leads. They didn't spend more money. How do we go about doing that? One example we proposed and have done many times before is to split the most popular key phrases into their own campaigns, and what we're then able to do is run some experiments on those campaigns to see whether we can lower the bids on the cost per click while still maintaining that #1 position. The example we've got in this instance is we ran a test, we lowered our bids by about 15–20%. We still managed to maintain our #1 position. We still managed to get the conversions that we expected. We just paid roughly 15% less for those ads and for those clicks than we would have done if we just let them run through the normal process. So when you're spending money on Google Ads, it's really important to not only select the right keywords, but also then optimize your bids on an ongoing basis to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck. And as I say, it can quite often be that agencies rest on their laurels and don't try these things. That's from a paid perspective. From a search perspective, how do I drive more traffic through to my site? SEO, whilst it's still perhaps not as important as it has been in the past, is still massively important for traffic and trust with users. So if you are running a website and you want to get more traffic from organic channels, these are some of the things that we would typically identify, looking at on-page elements such as meta titles, looking at things like duplication of H1 tags and optimization of query strings, page names. We look at technical factors such as speed, which is one of probably the most underlooked at, underrated ranking factors, particularly this year. And also look at some of the technical things like redirects. Are the redirects in the right places? Are they pages canonicalized properly? and do we have the right folder structures in place that again will enable Google to crawl the site and hopefully come through. Again, we've seen instances where if we want to generate more traffic and more leads through the site, looking at these technical on-page things are really, really crucial to getting some great success. A good example of how to prioritize some of these factors from an SEO perspective comes from Moz. I can't take any credit from this, and I've referred to this probably for the last 5 years in my talks. SEO has changed, hasn't really changed from a fundamental perspective. Some of the things have changed around the edge, but really this illustrates the priorities in which things should be looked at from an SEO perspective. So are you creating good content? Is your content optimized? And are you using the right title and URL structures? And these are the order in which you should be prioritizing your activities. If you're doing things in-house, this can be a great guide. If you're working with an agency, it's maybe a good tool for you as a marketing manager to go back to those people and query whether they're doing the right things for you at the right times. And the final thing to really think about when it comes to the marketing channels that you're using is really thinking about what role do they play in the conversion journey. Particularly with our travel clients, we know that the journey can be very, very long. It doesn't automatically get conversions on first click, second click. So if you are spending your budget, don't just think about conversions at the end of the funnel. You should also be thinking about how do I bring people through at the top of the funnel through things like social media and PR. All of your budget can't just be about conversion. You have to be thinking slightly longer term about bringing people through to your site who are actually going to be interested but maybe not ready to buy right now. So those are some of the things that we look at from a channel planning perspective, some of the things that can really help drive more efficiency and better cost per clicks or better visits to your website. In the third part, we're going to be looking at how do you make your website more effective and how do you improve your conversion rates. So hopefully you will join me in part 3.